This year is going to be a difficult year on dairy farms with the cost of inputs, price of fertiliser, price of meal, so I suppose we're going to try and utilise our slurry as best we can. I'm going to eliminate the early nitrogen, the January-February round of nitrogen until soil temperatures are correct to spread. I suppose that's going to be the major factor in reducing fertiliser, and when we do use it, it will be spread at the optimum time so we can get the best results from it and hopefully use our trailing shoe system in between on every second rotation with the cows. 2 seasons ago we stitched in Triwarric and Elysium, which was a tetraploid monoculture, into these 2 paddocks. They've performed very well over the last 2 seasons with plenty of growth, plenty of grass, but they are a little bit open, so we're just going to experiment with putting in multi-species and white clover, and hopefully it will reduce our fertiliser bill in the years to come by using those. Drought tolerance is a major issue for me personally here on the farm, so we are going to sow a percentage of the farm in multi-species this year. It will be interesting to see how it performs on this particular farm. There's great results throughout other farms with it, so hopefully it'll work the same here.
I've been driving down the amount of nitrogen that I've been using for a number of years. I've got it down to about less than 2/3 of what it was. My idea is to go further this year. So I sat down with my target advisor and we came up with a nitrates plan. And the nitrates plan that we've come up with indicates that we should be able to put very little P and K out on the farm. Basically, by utilising my own slurry, I should be able to get a lot of the P and K in that. I will have to top up my silage ground with protected urea. I haven't got a problem with that. And I will have to do some top dressing around the farm of protected urea probably, and that should really see me through the year. Now, there's a few paddocks that might need a little bit of top up of 01020 or 101020 in the nitrates plan, but we're talking a few tonnes. I like to reseed a bit every year, and for the last few years we've been putting in white clover consistently, and that's been working out really well. We're getting great results actually with that. That has been a big help in getting down my fertiliser usage. I'm definitely thinking about multi-species, and the reports are quite good coming back on multi-species in terms of way down on nitrogen requirement and also performance from cattle. So cows and cattle, in my case cattle. So yeah, I'm definitely going to try a paddock this year and see how I get on with it, and I think it's probably the future. If we're going to cut back on our fertiliser usage, we've got to start looking at multi-species. We've really started to focus on trying to maximise the value of the slurry, because I have always valued my slurry, but I think now we're starting to realise it's the new liquid gold that we have with the price of fertiliser. So what I do is, and I'm trying to do it more every year, is digest it into the slurry to try and increase the NP and K value of it. And I did 1 tank last year, I did all tanks this year. I'm getting good results out of that. The other thing is reduce the amount of water that's getting into the tanks to increase the concentration of the slurry. I've done that this year, it's working very well for me. My goal really is to get all my slurry out in the springtime of the year to maximise the value of that slurry and maximise the end value of that slurry, because you don't get the maximum end values, you know, and later in the year. I find I can get back in grazing those paddocks within 2 weeks if I go with the trailing shoe. You know, the whole idea here is to cut back the fertiliser bill by using my own slurry.
The programme has been very interesting all year. There have been new varieties that I've seen come on very well, performing way better than any of the farm has been performing before. Most of the varieties have done nearly 20 tonne. There's other partner farms within the DLF, and also it's interesting to see what they're doing on their farms as well. Some of them have different soil types, and it's interesting to see the different growth rates on different farms. It's interesting with DLF because hopefully the trials and they are doing the 20 tonnes dry matter. If I reduce my fertiliser down by 1/3, I reckon I'm still going to get 15 tonnes dry matter per hectare from the varieties. So I'll be very happy with the 15 tonnes grown on the farm if I cut back maybe 1/3 on fertiliser. The slurry spreading plan then for the spring is we've got slurry analysed. So we put 2,000 gallons out per hectare. So that is 8 units, 8, 16, 40. So we actually have 16 units of nitrogen, which is 2/3 of a bag of can, going out, and we'll use that for our first round. We won't spread fertiliser then till the cows graze the full first rotation, and we'll go back out then again. So there is a saving there as well. Another way of reducing my fertiliser usage is maybe to include white clover, which I'm working with DLF to put white clover in throughout the farm, and we'll cut back on fertiliser use going forward. And I think I will sow some multi-species this year. I have 8-acre paddock planned to put it in, which is on top of a hill. The reason for that is Over the last, say, 4 years, we've had 3 years of drought conditions. So if we can get one paddock that has multi-species in, at least it's drought resistant. The roots go down very deep, so even if we get 30 degrees during the summer, we're going to have a buffer there. It mightn't be the only buffer, but at least it's a buffer. You could use it with some silage. We do tend to burn up a little bit here on this farm.
We started in 2019 reducing fertiliser, so we're kind of 3 years ahead now. But in the first year we halved it, literally from 120 back to 59 tonnes. That's over all platforms, not just the milking platforms, the whole farm. We didn't see a huge drop in growth. We start going with our watery slurry, not slurry. We start targeting that a lot better. On the paddocks after the cows, every second grazing we follow them with watery slurry, which we still do to this day. We start incorporating a lot of clover, and that's kind of fixing our nitrogen. This winter now is stead growing, still seeing the benefits of clover in the swards. 3 main ways we halved our fertiliser bill was we started using dung. We turned into compost, or as near to compost as we could get, not fresh dung. We started using watery slurry more efficiently behind the cows every second grazing, and we incorporated quite a bit of clover into swards over the last few years as well. It's hard to take a jump of reducing because it depends on your stocker. There's an awful lot of variations there. It depends on stocker rates, a huge amount of things there. That lads will have to go with fertiliser regardless of the price, because if they're carrying X amount of stock, they just have to push the grass. Like, we're stocked around 2.9 here for most of the year on the grazing platform. So we're not lightly stocked, it's fairly heavily stocked, but still we're gone to zero fertiliser, more or less zero last year, was obviously zero this year, seeing as in conversion. Biggest thing I learned is that we didn't need all the manure. In 18, like, we would have been flipping the top customers in the local branch, like in the local co-op, or one of the top customers regard going and get fertiliser, go in and fill it up, bring it out and spread it. I suppose that's the biggest thing that we've learned, that we actually don't need all this fertiliser. If you let your soil kind of adjust over time, you will grow grass. You don't have to grow organic. I don't mean the whole country to go organic, but just whether we're organic or not, we'll be where we are today as regards fertiliser, whether we're organic or not. The current prices will be where we are anyway, but we will be where we are if regardless of the organic stamp. The soil has improved hugely in the multi-species swards, especially where the diversity has come into them. Our worm counts have gone way up. The soil is more crumbly. You can go down with a spade, no issue at all. It's having a positive effect on it over the years. It is having a positive effect, and it will continue to do. Like, even if the chicory only lasts 3 years, if that creates that airspace, if nothing else after 3 years, that there's air going through the soil and the water infiltration, everything that way, it'll still be a benefit to that tree. Since joining the Grass Partners, learnt a lot about the science behind the plants, the 6-species sward. It's the grazing management, everything that way. We've learnt all that because it is a bit frightening for people coming in first. That there's a lot of talk about changing the grazing management, but we kind of haven't a whole lot. We've learnt that part as well. It's kind of it's a journey. It has been a journey for the last few years, but it's a good one. It's a good one.